diving into a topic that's transforming the way we live, work, and how we communicate. Today, we're looking at artificial intelligence, otherwise called AI. We've been hearing a lot about AI of lately, from chatbots, working assistants to making decisions in organizations. But today we're going to be looking at how does this fit in the public service? How can technology help to serve our citizens better? With us today to help us have a fulsome discussion is Mr. Stuart Hilton, a respected professional in the field of digital transformation and technology from Syntac Consultants Limited. Mr. Hilton, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jody, and it's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So, you have worked in this space for some time now. What do you think government agencies can start doing to prepare their workers and teams to deal with AI and all its new innovativeness?
Sure, that's a great question. Of course, the importance is to understand where we're going to go with the technology. Any project or any engagement that you're looking to enhance or create innovation, you do need to know what your end state is. And we can always look at use cases from around the world. What are the different things that organizations or other government bodies are doing to utilize artificial intelligence? But I say understanding the end goal is important first, because you then know what are the training needs that we need to enforce. I think most of us today understand and know what artificial intelligence is, but even today, a lot of persons are struggling with just basic prompt engineering or basic commands when using what is generative AI, or even just interacting with the technology online. So it is important that all parts of the public sector are educated and made aware of what are the ways to use it, how to be safe with it, and therefore can start engaging with it in a way that is used to create or increase productivity in our society. So today I would say we definitely need to start with the awareness campaigns, the training and understanding of what the technology is, and the different use cases that it can be put in place to benefit us as a society.
Okay. How do you think AI will influence how public sector workers operate?
So, I start with most persons today tend to talk about, the negative aspects, the far dystopian future where the Terminator is coming to kill one of us to prevent Skynet from being launched. And I don't think that's where we're going to go as yet. So it's just a matter of are we trying to put in the guardrails and protections to prevent situations like that from potentially happening, because I'm not saying it's completely unreal. Once we get past that hurdle of the fear around the technology, then we can start seeing where it can be used. So there are places in the world that are using it in the public sector to do things like increase accessibility for persons with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So you may go to the tax office. If you are blind and you're not able to read the various forms that are being provided to you, then artificial intelligence can be used to do the reading for you. Assisted. Mm-hmm. And some of these are not as far-fetched as it may sound, where it has to be full generative AI that is doing it. But you can use generative AI to make sure we keep up with all the different updates that are happening, so that we can quickly translate those things rather than it becoming this whole massive undertaking to go from one new form to another, creation of braille forms or any audio that may be necessary. So it's thinking through the different scenarios that we're working with today and using it to assist where somebody, a person may be sitting there trying to figure it out, and putting it in place to assist those persons to get the use cases into more people's hands.
So it's more so facilitating efficiency. But from a public sector perspective, and I know you gave an example of, for example, the tax office, but there are some other ways you can think of AI being used to make the services that we public sector workers offer more efficient. And also adding the fact that most times when persons hear about AI, they tend to get a little scared. They think, hey, I'm going to lose my job and all of those things. But how can this integration of AI help to assist with service delivery?
Sure thing. So it, the best use case right now, I think, is doing all the mundane tasks that you have to do day in, day out. It may be as simple as just understanding a document. Today, I can use, I'm doing a lot of work in the data protection space. And today, even just trying to interpret what is in the legislation, understanding use cases or any precedents may be set in other places of the world, I use generative AI to help understand those things more quickly and to help produce new documentation that needs to be done. I think people need to start thinking about every time you do a task, every time you're about to do something, can it be done faster? Can it be done more accurately? Can I produce a better outcome? And if so, let me try using a generative tool or a chatbot in order to help do that. And the moment we start experimenting with things like that is the moment we start to discover different things that we didn't think we could do. I think one of the most common things you'll see in the private sector today is AI readers in meetings. I don't join a single meeting today on Teams, Zoom, or otherwise that somebody doesn't say, oh, that's my note taker, Fireflies, Read AI, all these different things. That removes the tedious task of having to write down all these notes, all these action items, and emailing it out to everybody else afterwards. Like that's so critical in the process. Reducing that time that somebody has to spend to do that frees up their time to do something else that's a bit more productive.
And even having to transcribe from audio.
Exactly. And so we you can imagine all the board minutes, executive meetings, all those things that these things are sent out so much faster. You normally have to wait up, weeks or a month to get to the previous board minutes because somebody has to transcribe it. They have to make sure it's clear, get everybody to vet. So I think persons need to start thinking every time I'm setting up to do something, can I try this with AI? Is there something, can I ask it to help me draft this document, respond to an email, create a work schedule? And seeing those things happen would make us, give us time to do something else that really does require full focus and attention.
I think one of the other things that's really important as it relates to AI is even though it's there to assist us, it's not there to do everything for us. And so the human element is really important. Sometimes when you see persons, well, not a lot of people can do this, but I can get a document and know if it was ChatGPT, right? There are certain little things that tells you that this is where it came from. And sometimes persons just don't edit and they don't think that it's plagiarism, right? So it assists in many ways, can give you templates. It's about using it the right way, asking for exactly what you want, because it will give you something when you ask for it, no matter what, but it's about asking for exactly what you want, right? And so, how do you think using AI can help in terms of how we communicate between government entities? I mean, as a citizen of the country, I'm sure you have to, for whatever reason, go to public sector entities to transact business. How do you think that integration of AI can merge or form some kind of easy access way for how we operate?
Sure. And I do want to recognize your example there about artificial intelligence. It needs that human aspect because it does what it calls what is called AI hallucinations, in which it creates information that doesn't really exist. And I think a big story that recently came out is in the case of Australia, the Australian government engaged Deloitte to do a report for them, some $440,000 worth of reporting. And it turns out this report that they submitted to the Australian government was written by AI and riddled with false references. So it made references to its research that didn't exist. And in Deloitte was in a situation where they had to pay by the government for the project because they didn't disclose, they didn't check all of, and that's the result of somebody not going through and validating the results of this report. And as you can imagine, this going to the government, they're now doing whatever transformation they need to do based on this report that is just not right. So as you mentioned, it's very important to remember that human aspect of being involved in what the output is. In terms of integration, we do have to think about some of the spaces that we're not being the most efficient today. And I do think about a lot of the services that we use on a day-to-day basis. How long does it take to get something amended on the title, the land title and so on? How long does it take to process a loan, even through NHT? These are processes that I do think should be done a lot faster. It shouldn't be a case that I have to spend months trying to figure out how to buy a home. If we use the artificial intelligence to integrate between the different systems and databases that we have, then it may be quicker to verify somebody's credit. It'll be quicker to understand the risk profile of different individuals. So all of these services can be provided faster and, as I mentioned earlier, become more accessible to persons who may not have been able to utilize these services before because they're only available in one form. Know that so much of Jamaica is now connected by the internet. I'm not going to say it's perfect. A lot of Jamaica still needs connectivity, access, right? Not just from a connectivity standpoint, but also from the devices. Not everybody has a smartphone. As hard as that might be to believe that everybody has a smartphone. But the more that those things become affordable and accessible is the more that we can connect and get people access to the right information in a faster way.
Right. When a lot of persons, when they think about AI, one of the drawbacks is that they think that there is less personal engagement, right? And so, how do you think we can balance automation with human touches?
And I think an important part of that is remembering what our end state is and what might be the most suitable way to address it. Because implementing a chatbot may not be the default thing that fits every situation. If I'm going to call an investment house to invest millions of dollars, I don't want to have that conversation with that chatbot to take on the risk of submitting all this money to then do an investment I want. And companies will have to think about that. In the same way as we integrate our services, our public sector services with artificial intelligence, we have to think about what is the best case scenario or endpoint that we want to get to. Some of these things may mean having a front-end person who is meeting with the individual or interacting with the person, but that individual is working with artificial intelligence in the background, some system, some process that is helping to make a decision faster. In the same way, though, I do want to point out, I believe there will become a point where it may be very hard to tell the difference between an AI chatbot, voice, and people. If anybody's using Sora today, you'll see the difference in what the video that it generates is today versus even 2 years ago. It's massively improved, and the more data that becomes available, the more video content, the more information that's on the internet, is the more human-like it will be. So I don't take away that we do have to think about what is the best endpoint that we want to use to solve a problem today first, and determine whether it's technology enhancement or if it's technology integration with the use of a person. That's the best case. We are going to see more cases of artificial intelligence becoming more human-like in the future.
And that segues into my next question, because I know we started off at looking at the future and all of that, but say, what do you envision a decade from now, AI integration being in the public sector?
So my hope is that more governments will act fast in regulating AI. And the reason why I'm very big on the regulation is because every technological advancement that happens that doesn't have some regulation around it spirals out of control. because we will continue to innovate and develop based on what are the best interests of an organization who's developing it, which may not consider some of the ethical and human implications that come with that. And just like how we've seen chatbots that may have conversations with individuals that incite suicide. That has happened. Where
Yeah,
youngsters are
recently.
right, that has happened, and it's because there's no guardrails in place to limit the type of interaction that it may have with a person. So I do hope first within the next 10 years we see massive regulation and enforcement of regulation around the use of these technologies and how it's being developed. And that once that happens, and we consider and we have a human-centered approach around it, so we're thinking about the benefit to people first in using this technology, that we will see improvements in how we deliver services, the type of services that are available, and increased productivity. So we start to see Jamaica as a whole producing more faster.
All right, thank you, Stuart, for that powerful vision. Before we wrap up here, what are some of the tips that you believe you can share with us as an organization? And this podcast is going out to over 30,000 members that we have, right? What are some of the tips you can share with us about how we can responsibly use AI?
Sure, great. Always start with what is the benefit to humans first. So create this human-centered mindset. If our objective is to become, for argument's sake, more profitable, we want to profit off of the technology, what is the way that profitability or the thing that we're creating to become more profitable helps people? Because the technology is just going to do exactly what we tell it to do. And if we don't consider the human-centered approach, then it's not going to consider the human. So think about that first. The next thing I'll say is that we all have to get on board, because it's going to happen with or without us.
Yeah.
That government, private sector, and otherwise, nonprofits, etc., are going to be leveraging the technology to benefit the organization. And I understand the fear that people have about the technology replacing them. But what has always happened with any innovation? Something may be replaced, but it creates something else. Today, it is creating jobs in prompt engineering. It's creating jobs in people becoming developers. But in your one job today, and similar to what I'm doing, I'm not concerned about the technology replacing me as much as I'm being replaced by the person who becomes better at the technology than I am. So I'm actively learning how to prompt, how to use it to become more efficient, how to work faster, deliver better to the clients that I work with. Because if I don't do that, it's not the AI that's going to replace me. It's the person who can do it who will replace me. So that's where I would say persons have to take a vested interest in their own development. And even if you can't invest financially in it, there's so many resources there. I have almost like a religious behavior around watching YouTube videos for these things and all the different things that people are doing in the States, just to understand.
And on the basis that technology evolves,
Right.
ever so often, at least every 3 months, we have to keep with the trends.
Exactly. So take the time to develop yourself. Don't necessarily wait on somebody else to make this resource available to you, because there are every other persons who are very interested who are actively doing it today.
Right. So upskilling is important, guys. Don't forget that. So thank you so much, Mr. Hilton, for providing us and sharing all these insights on AI, artificial intelligence, right? To our listeners, thank you for tuning into How Sweet the Fruit this episode. Don't forget to follow us, like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.